And welcome back to another episode of Bangarangs and Daggers. As always, I'm your co-host out here on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., Kevin Knight. And joining me tonight out in Nebraska is Patrick Gerhart. How are you doing tonight, Patrick?
I'm good. It's kind of a chilly fall night here in Nebraska. Harvest is fully underway. I should say some beans are getting out, but mainly just silage. So, things are bustling around here for what it's worth. How are things out in D.C.?
We finally have cool weather. It is so glorious, so wonderful.
As a northerner, you probably missed that.
Yeah, I mean, this, how do I phrase it? Usually it takes until late in September before we stop having ridiculously hot temperatures. And then by about late September, you finally being able to not sweat through a suit in the morning for most jobs out here. And then finally in October, we get fall for like 2 weeks in late October. And then a very wet winter. It's terrible out here. I hate, kind of hate the seasons. It's much better in the Midwest. But
I feel like we actually have seasons out here in the Midwest. Like our winters are cold, our summers are hot, and our spring and falls are kind of perfect.
Pretty close to it, yeah. Summer most especially.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell. Yeah.
Or at least summer on the Great Lakes is about as perfect as it gets. So,
you probably don't get too terribly hot.
Depends on where in the state. Depends on where in the state, especially. It gets warmer, obviously, down in the southern end of the state. But I mean, if you're up in the Straits of Mackinac, northwest coast, where I'm from, on Lake Michigan, you usually get a pretty nice breeze, even on hot days. So,
that's good. That's good. Well, we've got actually basketball news. We haven't done a podcast in 3 weeks, probably.
About that. Well, we'll give it generous 3 weeks. So
a generous 3 weeks, but we've, a lot of people are talking football right now because the Big Ten's going to play football. They decided, but it also comes up on quite a bit of basketball news that's going on, and good basketball news. Not really any drama per se. It's season's coming up, man, and we finally got some information. To start things off, why don't you start us off? You've got the agenda. I don't in front of me, so I'm just gonna stop rambling.
Yeah, well, so first off, let's start off with the fun news for Coach Hoiberg, in that he was named to the McClendon Foundation MLI ambassador for UNL on. I guess we're recording this on Wednesday night. This was announced on Tuesday afternoon. The news broke. So congratulations to him. Brief information on that is the McClendon Foundation, along with, let me start over. McClendon Minority Leadership Initiative is a program that created opportunities for minorities to begin their careers in college athletics. And it partnered with G3 Marketing and ProLink Staffing Services to assist in the solicitation of collegiate coaches, administrators, and corporations to build the program and provide opportunities within athletic departments at all levels. So that's a great honor for him. He joins a number of Big Ten coaches, actually, including Patrick Chambers, Tom Izzo, Archie Miller, Matt Painter, Steve Pickell, Mark Turgeon, and Brad Underwood. Co-chairs former Michigan head coach, current Harvard head coach, Tommy Amaker, and Kentucky head coach John Calipari co-chair this. So that's an honor for Coach Hoiberg, and certainly if we're being honest, definitely a nice recruiting pitch as well. And
huge. I mean, he's in there with some heavy hitters. It's not just a bunch of random coaches. There's some quality resumes on that list. So no, big thumbs up for Fred Hoiberg, and congratulations.
And I mean, it's not just basketball too. We also have, of course, Nick Saban. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Nick Saban and Dabo Sweeney on the football side, among a host of other coaches. So it's not specific to basketball, but a big honor for him.
Good for them. Yeah, Saban's not that bad of a guy.
No, I mean, he's not terrible, but I mean, obviously being, a person who likes fun college football, he's less than ideal, and a person who is obviously a Michigan State fan as well. I still have some bitter resentment, even if I was fairly young when he pulled that switcheroo to LSU. So, yeah, it's always going to hold a grudge, but we don't need to bring that up. Let's talk about the schedule news, which is
big news.
Conversation about bubbles. So it brings us to the Myrtle Beach Invitational, which, as our readers may recall, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are scheduled, or rather were scheduled, I should say, to kick off for their non-conference early season tournament this year in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Instead, that is now going to be moved to the Orlando bubble with a host of other ESPN-sponsored events. So even though that tournament will be changing dates and location, Nebraska will still be a part of it.
How long do they have to be in the bubble? Do we know yet?
No real details on that yet. They are one of 8 events that are confirmed that will be held in Orlando. There was conversation last week about other events such as the Big Ten ACC tournament, which may be held there as well. So we'll definitely keep everybody up to date as more things come out on the schedule moving forward. But among the events that are for sure confirmed that ESPN is moving there include the Champions Classic, the Jimmy V Classic, the preseason NIT tournament, the Orlando Invitational, Wooden Legacy, Charleston Classic, and Diamond Head Classic. Among those, of course, the Myrtle Beach Invite that Nebraska is part of. So,
yeah, that's a lot of business for Orlando. I mean, I'm glad Florida can handle it. But yeah, no, there's a lot of questions on how they're going to pull this off. When do we know? We don't have dates yet, right?
No, we don't. Originally, it was scheduled November 19th, 20th, and 22nd. However, obviously, that won't be occurring on those dates, and we'll get to that news later. Also breaking today, but also interestingly would be the question of what happens with the participants. I imagine not much, because originally the Penn Quakers were scheduled, and they have since been replaced with I forget who actually, but oh yeah, this tournament wasn't affected by Pac-12. I was thinking it was, but it was the Penn Quakers that were replaced, and I don't remember offhand. Furman, that was it. Furman got replaced, or rather.
And we're not even sure yet if the Pac-12 was going to play or not. I mean, I know originally, kind of like the Big Ten, you know, they put their foot in the ground on when they were and were not going to play this fall, and they straight up said we're not playing anything until January 1st, 1, with, you know, the Big Ten playing football at least, and the Pac-12 players are starting to kind of get restless, let's say, in terms of what they want to do this fall. We could probably see some changes there, and honestly see probably the Pac-12, as we'll talk about in a little bit, you know, playing this fall. So we might actually see them in some of these tournaments. So who knows? But it'll be interesting because there's a lot of questions. I know the NBA bubble down there has gone fairly well with really no real problems outside of, you know, chicken wings, buffalo wings. But that was a while ago, and it has gone pretty smoothly since then. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to pull this off, especially considering you're having a bunch of college kids from across the country stay in a bubble. I mean, they've got to spend at least 2-3 weeks there, I would guess. I don't know, probably 2 weeks there, just because you got to quarantine them and keep them in an area, keep them safe. So the college bubble is going to be different than the NBA bubble, I think, for sure. So,
it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they do that. But one thing's for sure, we can definitely say that LeBron James is an overrated greatest of all time, at least when it comes to the college level. And we'll use that to welcome Nate McHugh, our other co-host, a little late to the party.
LeBron couldn't get into college.
Yeah, he didn't have the grades, so he thought, you know what, instead I'm going to go straight to the NBA.
That and his mom bought him a Hummer.
Not having the grades to get into Ohio State, that's pretty darn low right there.
I have some friends who think he was going to go to Duke. They're obviously Duke fans, but whatever, right?
I don't think it was in his mind to go to college.
No, I don't think he had any.
I remember when he was in high school at, was it Notre Dame Academy or whatever? And
Uh,
wasn't it like Notre Dame Academy or something like that?
Keep going. I'll think of it.
I can't remember, but I just remember when he was there because it was a big deal, and just watching him play and just kind of seeing how the media treated him. I mean, I don't think anybody was kidding themselves that he was going to the NBA or going to college at all. So
Well, he does pretend to be a
anyway,
diehard Buckeye fan, at least, so he's got that going for himself.
yeah. And the Browns, I mean, the guy roots for the
St. Vincent,
Browns.
St. Mary
You got
High
to
School.
respect that. St. Vincent, okay.
True. Who was it? I don't remember his name. I had a hilarious conversation with I'm gonna blank on his name. He California congressman back when I was an intern, and no, I was a staff assistant at the time. And I had a fun conversation with him debating whether or not it was sadder being a Cleveland Browns fan like he was, which where he was originally from was Cleveland, or being a Detroit Lions fan like myself. And definitely not really winning the argument either way. Nobody's winning that one. We're all losing as Browns and Lions fans.
There's no winner.
Yeah, I'm a Bears fan, and I watched the end of that game, and the Lions running back literally had the ball in his hands in the end zone to win the game, and just dropped it. And that's just like, I appreciate it, but you're probably like, yeah, that's about how it goes,
Well, it's the one sure thing of 2020 is no matter how weird things get and how unordinary things get, the Detroit Lions still find baffling ways to lose late in the game when they should win. It's just they're just so creative that way. All the time they find new creative ways to lose. It's the one surety in this unsure world.
So are you guys talking about basketball, or is this a football podcast? Oh.
I quit paying attention.
Oh.
So we were wrapping up the Myrtle Beach invite. But no, I mean, the interesting thing will be what exactly that means with a bubble in Orlando. In part, I mean, it cost over $150 million for the NBA to pull all that off, and colleges are not going to achieve that. And I don't think the money's there for ESPN to justify hemorrhaging that to parent company Disney on all the hotel rooms and whatnot. So we'll see what exactly a bubble actually means in that sense. If you can bubble on campus and just take your charter flight down, pass a couple tests, things like that, I think that'll be good enough in this case. But we'll see. And it certainly helps in one sense that, as we mentioned earlier, we would get to this, the college basketball season is starting officially November 25th as of today. The Division I Council met and voted on that and delayed the season from November 10th to November 25th. So Myrtle Beach will be happening after that, obviously, if it does still happen, which is clearly the word per ESPN.
Mm-hmm. No exhibitions, so if you wanted to see Nebraska beat up on somebody like Doane, not happening. No secret scrimmages, so if you wanted a secret scrimmage, that was probably going to be against a team like Iowa State, not happening. Nate, did you fart?
They can't have secret scrimmages? Is that
No.
I obviously didn't read the article.
I wrote it for you.
You wrote it for me? Oh, I'm sorry.
I wrote it for you.
I remember I was walking around our little small town of Murdoch when that thing got published. So
how are the water meters?
About a fourth of them are broken. So
to our listeners, Nate is the water meter maid in Murdoch. So if you live in and are listening, Nate's the guy peeing in your window.
Yeah, I'm the guy that walks up to your house, and but I've been doing it for probably almost 2 years, so the people know it. If I'm by their house, I'm gonna read your number and I want to get out. So I don't want to look into any windows. I just I don't want to see something I can't unsee. And trust me, I am very aware of that, especially when the windows are like wide open. I'm like, nope. I'm just going to look at the meter, write it down, turn, and then walk away.
Nice save.
Well, if you end up on Facebook, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, I say, that's right. I
There
told
you
you
go.
That was last fall, right? When that
That
happened?
was last winter because I could only check meters after basketball practice, which means it was dark. And I'm walking around with a flashlight. And so, like, who's this guy walking around Murdoch up to people's houses? Yeah. Anyways, I wasn't happy about that.
So anyway, Thanksgiving week. The week of Thanksgiving is when basketball is going to start this year. We don't know the schedule yet. We don't know any of the schedules yet. We don't know if the Pac might actually be joining in. There's a lot of questions. Another thing they announced is that the dead period, the recruiting dead period, is going to get pushed to January 1st. So there's going to be no contact with recruits until January 1st. Ooh, what else we got? There's a few things they mentioned, but for the most part, it's just that we're instead of November 10th, it's going to be the 25th, at least around that age or time frame. Another thing. Practices will start roughly around October 14th because I think it's 42 days out you can start practice in college, or at least Division 1A. And because, so roughly around the 14th is when you're going to see it. Right now they are practicing 8 hours a week. It'll bump up to 12 starting this following Monday, and that will go up until the middle of October, like I just mentioned. So expect to hear very little over the next few weeks, and then middle of October just start getting a flood of stuff, not just from us, but from everybody else who produces content for basketball, because we'll finally be able to see how everybody's doing, how everybody's practicing. Reporters are finally going to be able to see these guys play, and if you're a Nebraska basketball fan, you have a lot of guys that are going to be new this year, most likely all 5 starters, maybe 4 starters, depending how things go. But it's going to be a new crop, so we're not going to really see anything. We're probably not going to see anything until middle October, but that'll be nice. It'll be good. I'm happy they're moving forward, and like I said, we've been focusing a lot on what's going on with football and everything that's going on with them in terms of interesting to see what basketball does and how each school and each conference treat it. I would imagine it'd be somewhat similar, but it also has to be different because you're talking, 120 plus man squad in football versus 14, 15 in basketball. Should be a lot easier to maintain. And I personally see less issues happening with basketball, and the ability to play probably all their games pretty reasonable. What do you guys think?
Same. I couldn't find the stat here for the show. I saw it earlier, but it's something like 67 or 73% of schools will actually be virtual only by the time that college basketball starts on November 25th. So in that sense, it makes it far easier to pull off some sort of a bubble, at least for early non-conference play in that regard.
Yeah. No, it'll be basketball in a way is kind of perfectly positioned, not just sheer size-wise, but timing-wise, to deal with COVID, the campus, break coming early for a lot of these campuses because, a lot of these schools are not coming back after Thanksgiving, and then you got some schools who aren't even doing it on campus, so it makes it even easier. So, yeah, it'll be a good situation. I think it's going to be a good situation. It's going to be, considering our situation, very clean compared to a lot of other sports and how this is going to be done. I think basketball is going to be kind of our rock coming up this winter in terms of being able to watch something on a regular basis.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, I think after the procedures and protocols that the Big Ten wants to happen, we might not have football when basketball starts. And
no.
guess what, Nebraska fans, maybe it's time to wrap your arms around the basketball a little bit.
Not to shoot over to football too much, but they announced today, as we mentioned, it's Wednesday when we're recording this, that football is going to start here later in October. And the parameters they're having to make sure these teams are safe are very, very tight. If you're a player who gets you cannot practice for 21 days, you have to self-isolate for 21 days. And if you have more than 5% of your team get COVID, I think the team has to self-isolate for 7 days or whatever. They can't play for 7 days, which is basically a game.
Or was that yellow? There's green, yellow, red.
I think that was red. Well, there was two different areas. There was the team, and then there's community. Community, the percentage was higher, but the team was lower, and I'm pretty sure it was 5% or above. Now, if you have a 120-man roster for football, or maybe it was 6%. I think, yeah.
No.
120
6 people get.
Yeah, 5% of your roster, 120-man roster, was averaging it out. That's 6 guys. All you need is 6 guys getting COVID, and you don't play next week's game.
Yep. Yeah,
I mean, like, this isn't Central Arkansas who, hey, we lost all the long snappers, but we're going to just do it anyway. Or 90% of our team has COVID like Texas Tech, and we're going to play anyway. No, Big Ten, if you have single-digit amount of players, you're not playing that weekend. Yep. So, I mean, keep your hopes up. And I want football as much as anybody, but that's really tight. And I see it a lot more manageable, and I can see the Big Ten being maybe a little bit more loose with the rules for a sport like basketball.
Yeah, I would be interested if they're going to require daily testing for basketball like they are going to football, because on September 30th, football players have to get tested every day. And so
what kind of test is it? Do we know? Is it nasal? Is it mouth? Oral?
Yeah, so it's a saliva-based antigen test that they're using for the daily test. And that one, if it tests positive, then they move to the I'm going to screw up the acronym here specifically, but I think it's PCR. So it's a nasal swab for the polymer chain reaction, I think, testing, which is more accurate than the antigen saliva-based test in terms of detecting or avoiding false positives, rather. But the saliva-based test is the daily that they use for kind of easier, quicker turnaround. The nasal swab obviously takes a couple days. And just because we're the Big Ten and we're pedantic like that, the exact numbers is 0 to 2% is green for the team ratio, 2 to 5% is orange, and greater than 5.5%. So if it's 5.1, then it's in red category for the team.
That's 6 guys. I mean, that's it. 120 guys, 6 guys shared a pizza at a party. They don't play Wisconsin next week. That's literally it.
I think you're going to find the different motivations of certain teams that play, because I think if you're an Ohio State player and let's say you're a team captain and you hear that you have some freshmen, like let's say walk-ons or whatever, going to a party or something, you might bring the hammer down on them, Whereas if you're like, Rutgers to me is probably the team that least wants to play. They might be like, yeah, we'll see what happens,
I don't know. I can imagine Northwestern not wanting to play, considering they're all probably going to make 6 digits out of college.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, you're right. Like, each team's going to have different goals within their team in terms of how they want the season to be. I've got a feeling schools like Nebraska, Iowa, Ohio State, who really wanted this from the get-go, are going to push for it. They're going to be very, very strict. I trust those are the types of schools who are going to follow the rules as much as possible to play. I'm not so sure about the other ones. I don't know. Mainly because we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
I generally think that, but then you also have cases like JT Barrett going out and getting a DUI this season. Was that in 16 or no? It was in 15, right? Where he went out and got a DUI, and Cardale Jones came out and picked him up and gave him a ride home. I mean, surely he had motivation coming off of the national championship season trying to repeat where they were undefeated at the time.
Or you think you're untouchable. A lot of those guys think they're untouchable. I mean, this is a little different. I mean, I think most of these university administrators and coaches are probably pretty hardcore on the health aspect of this COVID thing.
Yeah,
that's my guess. I don't know.
It's not a perfect apples to apples comparison by any means. Sorry for the static there, folks.
Oh, I mean, like, didn't they have some players who literally went out and partied, came back with COVID? I think it was TCU.
There was somebody at Memphis, wasn't it? Memphis had like a party bus.
It was, yeah. They had like 14 players. I think it was a party bus, but I mean, I think they were dropping like flies in terms of COVID anyway before then. So,
and we should probably also specifically note as well, the announcement out today from the Big Ten did specifically mention men's and women's basketball among other sports that will have the testing procedures and rules and all those things announced at a later date. At this time, only football, other fall sports, and winter sports such as men's, women's basketball, hockey, etc. Pending still on their procedures and decisions, at least as far as the Big Ten goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what those parameters are. I mean, like I said, it's just, they probably don't even know yet. It's just it's tough. We're still on a day. I mean, I know we've had COVID in the United States for a long time, but this is still a day by day thing on how things are going to operate.
Most definitely is.
And I mean, they're still trying. I mean, a lot of schools are just getting going. Some of these schools with the quarter system, they're just getting started in academics. So they're just having kids come back to campus. How's everybody? I mean, they're still trying to figure this out in a lot of ways.
And we'll also have to figure out the non-conference schedule for Nebraska as well. Not out today with the NCAA announcement was any changes as to the number of games allowed, because remember, it does shave off 15
I thought
days.
It was just 4 less. I thought it was just 4 less.
Was it? I didn't actually see that one yet, but
I think I saw it later on. I think it was on Twitter. I think it's down to like 27 games.
Okay, so shaving off a couple of bye games. That's not a problem.
I think that's it. I think that's all they're doing.
So you're saying Nebraska is not going to win 20 games this year?
Might have been a little optimistic. I don't know.
With all the talent coming back to the Big Ten, as I think we mentioned in our last podcast, we'll see.
Have there been many opt-outs for college basketball or Big Ten that you've heard?
I haven't seen any news on that whatsoever as far as that goes. A lot of
guys who announced for the NBA this summer said they're coming back. A lot of guys who you expected to go to the NBA are coming back. So
that's interesting. Oh,
yeah. I mean, that one, like Luka Garza, for example, is obviously the top name of returning guys. That stuff I'm not necessarily sure was as much influenced by COVID. Maybe in the sense that they had the hope that there will be a college hoops season and Iowa can figure out how to play defense and finally get Fran McCaffrey a conference title and something of a deep run in March. Certainly optimistic thinking on that end, on COVID related, but come on. I was trash talking Iowa. That's you guys' favorite pastime, isn't it?
I could care less about Iowa.
Okay, fine.
I'm in the don't care about Iowa camp.
Okay, fine, fair. Bargains are on.
I have no major hatred.
We just need to worry about us. We can't compare ourselves to other schools. We need to get better than we were.
Okay, fair. I am in a different situation, trash talking basketball programs than you guys. So That is true.
Who's power rankings had us 13th out of 14, which is probably accurate. Was it John Greenberg or?
It just came out the other day too.
Probably BT Powerhouse.
No, it was a legitimate publication.
Hey.
Wasn't it?
Huh?
Wasn't John Greenberg?
It might have been. It was like Nebraska's 13. I think Northwestern was 14.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a valid ranking.
You can't argue with that.
No, especially when Rutgers is returning everybody and they're decent.
Yeah,
You know,
they were good.
Northwestern's probably going to have a new coach in a year. I might throw Penn State in there.
Tough to say. They were finally going to make the NCAA tournament. They questionably return enough to maybe have a shot. I'd be surprised personally if they do.
Well,
They're in a rough spot. I don't feel super bad for Pat Chambers because I personally really dislike him from interactions
well,
I've seen.
he's had some issues. He got into trouble a couple times last year, but
Oh yeah, especially most recently this off season. But even before that, I had my own personal qualms with things he said over the years in press conferences against other teams I'm a fan of, and so I'm not a big fan of his. But yeah, Rutgers though I would not be surprised if they finish top 5 in the conference this season. Might luck into something higher, but I don't necessarily see them being higher than 5th place. But I definitely don't
good.
see an unlikely path for them that doesn't end up having a good shot down the stretch at finishing strong and around that ranking.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not. I mean, there's other really good teams ahead of them. So,
yep.
So what else we got?
I guess just briefly run down some of the games that'll change. We've got Cleveland State, Purdue, Fort Wayne, all before the start date for the new season. On the opening day of the NCAA season, we have Lamar scheduled. No word yet on whether that'll change. Still waiting on the Big Ten ACC Challenge to be announced. Creighton's probably still a lock. Who knows about Kansas State, Kansas City, or Florida A&M beyond that. And we're still waiting on a Big Ten conference schedule as well. But who knows whether or not they'll keep it at 20 this year, given the fact that they are reducing non-conference games. But I'd be surprised if they change it from 20. I don't know. I think we see a higher focus on conference schedules. And it should be mentioned, too, that non-conference early season tournaments don't count against the total number of games either.
Cool.
Or at least last I saw, but that was talking about reducing games to like 25 or 24 or something. I think around 25, but that was speculation early in the day before the NCAA actually announced. So I have no idea what impact that could have.
I got nothing on that.
Yeah.
I've been so enamored with what's going on with football. It's like, you have so much energy,
Penn State's supposed to be in Lincoln. Yeah, that's a dumb question. Obviously it is, because in 17 it was at Penn State. So that one's probably not getting dropped. Rutgers is probably getting dropped for Nebraska for the 8-game schedule.
That'd be nice.
Dropping Rutgers?
Yeah.
You don't want to win?
That'd be an easy win, but I just don't trust Rutgers.
Wait. You're talking about football.
Yeah, right? Yeah, football, sorry.
Okay, so I think, didn't the original schedule have us playing Rutgers week 1?
The first schedule had Purdue. The second one had Rutgers,
okay.
Yeah.
We need that. We need that to happen, because I don't want to try to schedule Rutgers like at the end of November, because they might be like, guys, we're done. Because their president or whoever came out and said, yeah, it's a week-by-week thing. We're ready to suspend or cancel games on a week-by-week basis. And while we all know and understand that, it's like when you come out and say that, publicly, it's like, hey, by the way, yeah, we're ready to cancel if you guys give us a reason. We'd love to have a reason to cancel. So
as a player, that doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence.
No, I know. So that's why we need to play in week 1.
Yeah, week 1, get out of the way, and then by week 3, they'll be done for the season.
Yeah, I mean, mostly I just I bring that up as kind of a fun topic because Purdue's AD said that it would be reverting back to the original 9-game schedule, cutting a game, obviously, in which case, if we go with the assumption that Bill Moose is pushing for balanced home and home between East and West, you're probably going to end up cutting a road game to the east for Nebraska in order to try and balance that out, which means Rutgers, because Penn State plays in Lincoln. Best guess on my end on that. So, but who knows?
You know what? I think that Ohio State is going to do their best to blow everyone out by 50 points because they're only, they have to persuade the college football playoff committee that even if they only play 8 games plus a conference championship game, that they are worthy of that playoff when the SEC is playing 10 or 11 games?
10 games. 10 games
10
conference
games.
only.
Yeah, so – but then they have the conference championship, right? So, yeah, so it can – so I'm like – they might come out and be like – they might put like a 70-pointer on us, So
well, there's one team that they're aiming for at least 100 points against.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm rooting for them to get over 100 in that one.
You know what this conversation would be good for? The Big Red Cobcast.
It would be. Are they going to listen to that? Or
I don't know. I just know that's a football podcast that Coronation supports.
Yes.
And they do a good job.
Do we have another football podcast that our fearless leader, John, joins in, as the Five Heart podcast?
Not that I listen to.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you're talking about either, I guess. So
I think
I got to get going,
is
guys.
probably a night, yeah. So as always, we appreciate everybody listening, or if you happen to be watching our YouTube, we are on YouTube now. So we hope that you enjoy our smiling faces and joyful interactions on there. Please subscribe. Be sure to download and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you prefer. And you also get all the other great, but not quite as great, Coronation Radio podcasts. Follow us on Twitter @Bangs and Dags. Leave us a review. And most importantly, please listen and share.